Income School, today we are launching our full 60 steps for YouTube. 60 videos with everything that we have learned about YouTube over the last few years. We've had our 60 steps for blogging where we put all of our knowledge in how to launch a new internet text-based business as best as humanly possible, and we'll obviously continue to improve on that over time. But today we're launching our full YouTube course as well. So whichever track you want to go on, you can build your business in a step-by-step manner to make sure you're taking advantage of every precious hour you have to spend before work, while the kids are taking a nap, whenever, to make sure you're not wasting any time at launching your business as quickly as possible. And today we're going to focus on that time, how you should spend every precious hour you have to work to make sure you're maximizing it.
Exactly. So what we've done is we've broken down this process of building your internet business, whether it's based on a blog or based on a YouTube channel. We've broken that project into 3 distinct phases because they really are distinct phases. And whether you're just beginning today or you're somewhere in one of the other phases, there are going to be things in this video that I believe will really help you to make the best use of your time. So let's start with phase 1. Phase 1 is the prep phase. We oftentimes, because we're so focused on content, it often feels like that's what's first. And the reality is there's some things that need to come before the content. Step 1, you really should just take a little bit of time, a couple hours one day, and just set up your website. This does not mean go all out and design it and make it look really pretty and put in cool little widgets here and there. We're talking about put up a WordPress website, put a theme on it, and just get ready to move on. But then the next thing is we need to do a little bit of research before we can do anything. This has got to be one of the most valuable things that Jim and I have done in our business, and that is, especially from a time management standpoint, I should say, and that is to separate your research time from your work time. So if you're like when I started in blogging, or like when Jim started in blogging, and you have a lot of other things to do, you have a normal job, maybe you're in school, you don't have a lot of time every day to work on your website. And if you dedicate a portion of that time to research, you have very little time for the things that need to be done, the content creation and the search analysis. And so we separate the research out. When you're driving in your car, when you're on the subway or on the bus, why are you listening to music?
Nobody needs Sting. Why are you still listening to Sting? Nobody listens to Sting. Listen to a podcast. Listen to a book. Turn on YouTube. Go learn while you have that downtime during lunch, while you're doing whatever, waiting for a meeting at the DMV. Spend that time researching, right?
Yep. Yeah, exactly. Listen to podcasts. Go download some audiobooks. Turn on YouTube and just binge watch or listen. Even if you're driving, just don't put your phone where you can see it, just where you can hear it, and listen to content. This is going to help you learn the vernacular of your industry. It's going to help you learn how people are teaching in your industry. It's going to help you identify the gaps in how they're teaching. Most people that teach content on their YouTube channels, on their websites, even in podcasts, often forget about the beginner, and they don't create the right kind of content for them. You can identify the gaps and learn all the vernacular and learn all the things about your industry just while you're going about your normal life. So when it's time to actually sit down and do the work, you have time to do the work. I'm going to be doing this for a little while before I do much of anything else on the website. But the other thing we need to do in this phase is our search analysis. Do not skip any steps in the search analysis process. So we're going to identify topics. We're going to do our competitive analysis. Jim, go ahead and tell us what you've done more coaching calls than I have. We've both done a ton of these, but it seems like every time the search analysis is off, we'll go and we'll look through the content they created, like look at a blog post and go Google the topic. And we're like,
yeah, it's the same thing every time. We usually do consultation calls for two different reasons. One, somebody is kicking butt, making money hand over fist, tons of traffic, and those kind of people get an obvious ROI when they talk to us because it's expensive to do a consulting call with us. And so they get an obvious ROI because if we can just do one thing to get you 5% better results multiplied by all that traffic or do better with your monetization, you get an obvious ROI.
Yeah.
The other camp of people that we get in those consultation calls are people who spend a lot of time. Usually, I would even say they're people who are not Project 24 members, who tried to do things on their own, but they just skipped enough steps in search analysis that it made the whole project fail. And that's really sad to see. But what I often do, I often say, I'm sorry, this is going to be hard to hear, but it's going to make you better. And so I'll bring up one of their blog posts and I said, now you decided this was a search phrase that you were going to write about, right? And you spent hours making this blog post and it is returning you nothing, 0 page views per month. Let's go see what happened in the search analysis phase where your system broke down. And every time I'll just Google the primary search phrase for that blog post they wrote and I'll say, look at the competition here. Like these are all name brand sites. They're high domain authority that are directly on point answering this question. And so what made you write this? Like the competition was too high. And every time the answer is the same, it's like, I was kind of rushing things in search analysis. I had to think of 30 topics to write about and I skipped a step. I didn't do the competition analysis before I started writing that one. And just skipping that little step can make the entire site fail. The whole thing. I mean, we've seen it so many times because we just rushed the search analysis a little bit. That's why in Action Step 8 in the course, why we've slowed things down so much to make you really think through and fill out that Excel sheet tool we created for you so that you can make sure that you are doing it right and you're not missing anything there. So phase 1, quickly set up the tech. Don't waste time on that. Make it just simple. Get your website up, but slow way down on the search analysis. Once you have that done, you're confident in your search analysis and the tech is just ready for you to write. So that's when we move to phase 2.
Exactly. Now, phase 2 is where we really dive into the rest of the 60 steps, which is going to be your first 30 blog posts or your first 20 YouTube videos. In this phase, we really are cranking out content. Now, what we're not doing is monetization. We're not doing technical tweaks and fixes to the website. We're not making cool tools for the website. We're not doing design work on the website.
Logo rebrand.
Yeah. We're not going to do a rebrand. Exactly. You've set up your website, you put a logo on it at the very beginning, and we're moving on to content at this point. Now, this phase, if you take the full amount of time that we would allot to our own writers to create each blog post, this phase could take you 3 hours a day for 60 days to be able to get through this.
Yeah, and that's based on, if we're giving a writer who knows nothing about the topic, we're giving them 8 hours for a pillar post, 4 hours for a staple post, and 2 hours for a response post. But if you followed that tip from the first phase of separating your research and your writing time, you're doing your research while you're exercising in the store, driving, whatever, separate all that out, you can get done what would take 170 hours to finish the 60 steps, and now you can do it in half that time. You're half the time it would take to do, because now you sit down and, can I create a response post in an hour? Can Ricky? Ricky did it on a video for you.
And I had to
response
research
post in an hour. We did it on YouTube. No problem. 1,200 words when I already know the information in an hour? No problem. It really is like cut directly in half how much time it takes to finish the 60 steps now.
And now this is going to do a couple things for you. Not only will it cut your time in half to where you really can dedicate 1 to 2 hours a day and that's it on your project and still be able to get through those steps within about 60 days. The other thing it's going to do is it's going to give you better content. If you do your research at the time you're writing blog posts and you're getting your research from other blogs, you're probably just doing maybe a little bit better job of spinning somebody else's content. it's hard to come up with something truly original if all you're doing is sitting down, reading other blog posts, and then writing your own stuff. If instead you have just like immersed yourself in the industry, again, by listening and learning everywhere that you can, at this point, you don't have to do much specific research for each blog post. And the little bit of research you do is just to find little specific tidbits, maybe some numbers, statistics here and there. And so you're actually going to create better content that's not just a regurgitation or a reorganization of what's already out there. The other thing we are not going to do at all during this phase, not at all, is outsource any of this work. If you're hiring somebody to start making blog posts for you, videos for you, do search analysis for you, and you have not written your first 30 blog posts or made your first 20 videos yourself, you are doing it wrong. It's a huge mistake, and you're robbing yourself of the opportunity to learn a really important skill for somebody that's going to run an online business.
Man, I couldn't agree with that more. It's so tempting to just say, oh, this is hard, and I've got to slog this out for 60 days. This is hard. To just say, let's let somebody else do it. But can you imagine if you were trying to learn how to day trade stocks, right? And you're just like, oh, I'll just give some random dude my money and hope he makes good trades for me. What? That would be stupid. Why would you do that, right? You're not going to let somebody else day trade their money and hope they know something you don't. No way you would let them do that. But that's what you're doing with your business here when you outsource it before you have even learned yourself how to do it correctly. Like, just spend 60 days and yes, you'll create a bunch of content, but even if you plan for this to be a very passive business where you're outsourcing it, you need those skills. You need those skills of, hey, I wrote this content the best I can and it still didn't work. So a year from now, I can look at it and not just say, oh yeah, the writer didn't do a good job. I'm going to look at it and say, why didn't this work? And you can actually focus on the technical stuff. Don't outsource during the crank it out phase. Just do it yourself. And then you can make it passive and you can outsource and you can grow your team.
Exactly, but that's phase 3. And we're going to be able to start that phase 3 after we've completed those 60 steps, again, either for YouTube or for the blog. Now, phase 3 is when we get into establishing a regular publishing routine. At this point, instead of necessarily writing a new blog post every day or every other day, now we're going to get into a normal publishing schedule. Maybe for your blog, it's going to be weekly, or maybe it's twice a week for now, and you'll reevaluate later. For your YouTube channel at this point, maybe you're down to 1 video a week. Maybe you'll keep up 2 videos a week for a while, but you're going to get into a routine of creating content and publishing that content on a more regular basis. At this point, we might start creating, and we probably should at this point, start creating additional assets. Maybe you're going to start doing some Pinterest. If you're a blogger, maybe it really is time to dive into that YouTube content and start making some videos to go along with your channel. Maybe it is time to start considering an Instagram, or maybe it is time to go do some outreach and get interviewed on somebody's podcast, or on YouTube do a collaboration with somebody else's channel. At this point, I'm going to start working on EAT for my website. I'm going to create an about page. I'm going to maybe go back and consider the design of my website, make sure that the branding is good, make sure that the website is functioning technically properly. I'm not going to do a ton of tweaking and waste most of my time on that sort of stuff, but it is time to just start putting your house in order and making sure that it all fits together and that you can establish some real authoritativeness on your website.
Yeah, so I think when people get to phase 3, it's really easy to want to become a newspaper model instead of becoming an influencer model. And I feel like it's usually a mistake to go with the newspaper model. What I mean by that is most people say, sweet, I can now wash my hands of writing content on websites. I can now wash my hands of search analysis. And I can be the CEO of this company, now just watching my minions create content for me. And I think that's a big mistake. You have now learned an incredible skill that is rare in the world. You know how to bring eyeballs to a website or to a YouTube channel. And so now you need to move to you creating the highest level of content and having other people create a huge batch of response posts for you. You know, you're writing those big pillar posts that, man, this is going to take somebody with some real skill to rank for this. You're the one who's creating the YouTube videos and you have somebody outsourcing the editing, right? We can get rid of huge chunks of your tasks, but going the influencer model rather than the newspaper model, I feel like has a much higher hit rate. I've seen so many people try to become the newspaper model with 1,000 writers, and they get huge volume and they find it's very difficult to scale because you have to teach someone all these skills in order for them to write content that gives you an ROI and to do the search analysis that gives you an ROI and to make sure it's monetizable to give you an ROI, etc. So that model can work, but few organizations figure that out. A lot of people today figure out the influencer model, where you're outsourcing a lot of the content that's just volume that just needs to be done, but you're doing that in order for you to be able to create the higher level content, to be the face of your company, to go develop EAT, to make the YouTube videos, to write the pillar posts, etc. I mean, Ricky and I are here. We're creating content this morning, right? We have employees, but we're here creating the content, and that's why. I plateaued for a lot of years, just steady. And I was so frustrated. Every year I would look at my tax return and I would tell my wife, I was like, this income is fantastic, but I've spent 4 or 5 years stuck at $500,000 a year. It's awesome, but I've been working really hard and I didn't even grow 10% year over year. Not even 5%. I have been plateaued for years. And that's what I realized was missing. I was trying to create a newspaper model and I needed to move to an influencer model. It's just a lot easier to do.
In order to help you to keep focused on the tasks you need to be doing where you are in the process, we've created an awesome looking cheat sheet for you that we want to share with you. You can go to incomeschool.com/content phases, and there you can see all of the things that we're going to give you in our email newsletter, including the cheat sheet, which you'll receive right away when you sign up. We're so excited to be able to share this with you and help you as you're working on this journey, wherever you are in the process. Focus on the right steps for this phase. Don't ever try to delegate away things that you should be doing yourself. Only delegate away the things that others can do effectively so that you can focus on creating the highest form of content. It's one of the most valuable things that I think that people today who are in this business need to learn. So there you have it. Stay safe, stay healthy, and we'll see you guys next week.